There's a troubling theme in media coverage of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's the incessant need for a political scapegoat, specifically a scapegoat that is not named Vladimir Putin. The politicized media insists upon blaming an American president for Vladimir Putin's war. And obviously, which president deserves the blame comes down to which cable news channel you watch. Over on CNN and MSNBC, the past few weeks have been a hate Trump fest. And while that might not seem to be any different than what those networks have put out over the past 5 years, it's particularly significant now. Donald Trump is out of office, has no control whatsoever on what's happening, and yet CNN and MSNBC would have you believe at least part of the reason this invasion happened was Trump.
Siding with Russia, siding against Ukraine, how Donald Trump's long history of praising Putin, dismissing Ukrainian concerns, may have, experts say, helped lay the groundwork for what we're seeing in Ukraine today.
Trump and his Republican allies would like you to forget the role that they played in setting the stage for Putin's war, but we are not going to let them.
A big part of why we are where we are today with Russian aggression in Ukraine and against NATO is because for several years in the Trump administration, the work of Putin was effectively being done to weaken the NATO alliance, to open U.S. intelligence to the scrutiny and victimization of the Russian entities, and to continue to allow this narrative, the narrative of white supremacy that dominates Putin's ideology, to work through Donald Trump and infect the American public once again.
Whoa. Is it raining out? Must be Trump's climate policy. Bars out of Heineken's, let's say. It's got to be his trade partners, right? The relationship with them. It's an old game for CNN and MSNBC, but it's particularly concerning right now on an issue where, for once, so many Americans are on the same page. Now, Fox News and the other more conservative networks are focused on the current president. Every day, Joe Biden is portrayed as a hapless, doddering buffoon who might as well have sent tanks to Vladimir Putin.
This is why our policymakers aren't thinking long term. Right. Provoking this war has brought our two enemies closer together.
Biden's so focused on not provoking Russia that he's failing to do what's necessary to defeat Russia. When your enemies think you're weak, they're more likely to question your resolve, and they're more likely to test your resolve, and they're more likely to miscalculate. That's how wars get started. So you've got a situation, I mean, it's no coincidence that Putin invaded just a few months after the disastrous Afghan withdrawal, which sent a message of weakness in the world.
Joe Biden is doing absolutely nothing to counter all of this aggression on the world stage. And his pathetic, feckless weakness, it is causing all of this.
Now, it is totally fair game if you want to criticize Biden's actions or inactions, both leading up to the war or during the war itself. And it's equally fair game if you want to critique Trump's Russia policies or even commentary leading up to and during the war. I may agree or disagree depending on the issue. But neither of them pushed or encouraged Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. Blaming us, as opposed to the real perp, Putin, is the problem. But each side gains so much politically for blaming Trump or Biden, so the incentive to keep doing it remains. This is Vladimir Putin's war. I just get tired of people blaming the U.S. for Putin's horrors. This invasion is his, and his alone. Joining us now is Eleanor Clift. She's a contributing columnist for the Daily Beast, longtime political commentator. And back with us is General Richard Newton. Eleanor, you have been in this business a long time. What is going on here? Why are we seeing so much of the politicized media pointing fingers at each other as opposed to focusing on Putin?
Well, I would really take issue with how you presented that. It's a selective use of clips, which is what we do. Nothing wrong with that. It's the most Fox I've watched in some time. I have to admit, I'm familiar with CNN and MSNBC. And I think there is rather remarkable unity. I mean, everybody wants to be Ukrainian right now because of the acts of courage that we're seeing. But there was a narrative that took hold very quickly that the Republicans were pushing, that this never would have happened if Trump were in the Oval Office. And I think that opened the door to liberals, cable networks, to respond and to bring up some of Trump's history as to why that's not the correct narrative. I don't think either side is really pushing this. I think unity is what the American people want to hear right now. But I think as the midterms get closer, you're going to see more combativeness from the Democratic side. And we're already seeing it from the Republican side. They're claiming that Biden killed the Keystone Pipeline, and that was 800,000
but, you know, Eleanor,
that oil didn't exist.
Hang on, just so you know, I had a choice of about 20 clips. Those were not, you know, you're making it sound like, oh, I just selected a few clips. They sent me so many different clips of both MSNBC, CNN, and Fox doing exactly what I just laid out. I promise you, it's not just an isolated issue where I happen to find a couple of clips of people saying things that were pointing fingers. It's happening. It's real.
I'm not saying that. In the course of the day, though, if you watch the cable networks, you're watching a bloody pregnant woman, and you're watching people grabbing their animals and rushing out. You're watching the generals with the pointers. I don't recall any of the clips you aired. I mean, I think that's kind of wallpaper now. Now, you could be right. That wallpaper.
The good news or bad news. The good news or bad news is I watch too much cable news. And that's the reality of the position I'm in, is I watch a ton of cable news. But General, let me ask you from a military perspective, I just get depressed hearing the finger pointing at the United States in this context, as opposed to the focus. And again, I'm not suggesting these people are saying he's at fault instead of Putin. I don't think any of them are saying that. But there is this enormous focus in cable, on blogs, in the media, on sort of the blame game within the United States.
Well, Dan, I think we ought to rise above the blame game, because we ought to be unified in this, again, this invasion and the atrocities that we're seeing across the media and so forth. This, to me, is one of the most significant crises, national security crises I've seen, short of 9/11. And so I think, to take Ms. Clift's point, is we ought to be more thinking in terms of how to be unified. And let the domestic politics kind of go off to the side here. This is Putin's war. And so we need to stand behind certainly our commander-in-chief, President Biden, as well as now a more unified NATO force than I've seen in my 35 years in a career and so forth. And so the pause we ought to make here is to support again, American national security interests, which are now the interests of NATO, a U.S.-led NATO, but which will in turn support the Ukrainian people against this pariah Putin, who has done an invasion that is extraordinary, that we've never seen in our lifetime. And so that's where I come down on this. From a national security standpoint, we ought to be unified as a peoples. Let the domestic politics and the pundits and so forth off to the side. But that would be my focus.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I'm doing this segment is because I agree with you, and I find it to be troubling when I hear this, although I do agree with Eleanor that largely, and that's the reason I think it's encouraging, is largely you're seeing this unity, but not all of it, and it's frustrating. General, Eleanor, Clift, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.